Hello, everyone. We're just letting people in, getting in from the waiting room. Will give us about a minute more before we get started in earnest. Thank you all for attending today. The other people trickling in, I'll leave it to my colleague Miguel to manage that from now, but welcome to all that have just joined. This meeting, as you will have probably just gotten a notification as you entered the room, will be recorded and live streamed. The presentation component we will make time towards the end of the call to turn off live streaming and recording and have people pose their questions in the come off camera and ask their questions live. So before we get started, I'll just cover a few housekeeping notes. We have a public agenda for this call, which my colleague Miguel will share in the chat. You're welcome to write down your name, contact information as you feel comfortable. This is a space where you should be able to remain in contact, or if someone says something really smart that you want to follow up on after the call, it's an easy way to just opt in to sharing your information. And there's also a few announcements on that. We also, as a reminder, will follow the Mozilla community participation guidelines, which are linked from that agenda doc. In effect, it's treat each other with respect, and if there's any issues, they will be dealt with swiftly, but I think we have a good group today. And before I pass it over to Gavin to talk about dark visitors, you can just know that you are all welcome to ask questions in the chat as Gavin is presenting, and we can look out for them and ask them as soon as the presentation is completed. So good, that's most of the housekeeping, and I'll just say a few words about Data Futures Lab. Most of you will be familiar, but in case not, for the last 5 years, the Data Futures Lab has served as an experimental space for instigating new approaches to data stewardship challenges, where we provide funding, scaffolding for collaboration, convening around emerging ideas, and a place to workshop approaches to data stewardship, which give greater control and agency to the people. Mozilla is in the midst of a strategic planning process, and as this process evolves, we remain invested in Data Futures and will continue to invite you to data-related events and funding opportunities, et cetera, as they emerge. And a few words to the speaker series that we've been doing throughout the year. With this speaker series, we've been looking to explore what it would actually look like to have a more equitable data ecosystem in the context of generative AI. An important aspect of this is looking at the dataset layer and investigating how the datasets are assembled and governed, and whether the people and communities whose data is used are given agency. Today, we'll hear from Gavin of Dark Visitors, who has been exploring these questions in an effort to create a suite of tools that empowers website owners to have better oversight and agency over their data. And with that, I will hand it over to Gavin to present.
Awesome. All right, let me share here. All right, so hello everybody, my name is Gavin King and I'm the founder of Dark Visitors. And yeah, today, first I want to thank Lisa, I want to thank Mozilla for having me on. And today I'm going to talk about the topic, how do I track who's actually crawling my data? Obviously I'll get to Dark Visitors and kind of how that can help people, but I want to frame this kind of as like the evolution of internet bots, like what were they in the past, what are we dealing with today, and what can we look forward to in the future? So quick agenda, I'll talk about obviously bots in the past, bots right now, like what are the things that we're currently dealing with, and then yeah, like what can we prepare for, like I said. So first, some initial context that I want to get into. What actually is a bot? So a bot is an automated computer program that visits websites by itself without too much human or without direct human intervention. They are called web crawlers, spiders, kind of like the current modern term is agents, which is a bit more inclusive. That's actually what Dark Visitors calls them. And they may or may not be artificially intelligent, depending on how they're implemented. And what does this have to do with data, right? So the entire reason bots exist is to collect data. So if you run a website, your website's content is exposed to them by default. And if that's something you care about, you need to basically explicitly opt out. I think many people are familiar with robots.txt, what that is. But that's one way you can do this. You serve this robots.txt file on your domain, and that can say, you're allowed to visit this, you're not allowed to visit this. Quick intro on Dark Visitors. So I'll get more into this, but Dark Visitors basically lets you track and control bot activity on your website. There's two primary features. One is automatic robots.txt, and the other is agent analytics. So I'll get more into these later in the presentation and like how they can help you, but hopefully that should become clear as we go throughout this evolution of internet bots. So let's get into it. Bots in the past. Bots honestly used to be pretty boring, right? Like they are almost as old as the internet itself. They've been around for a really long time. Some of the more our first use cases used to be for search engine crawlers like Alta Vista, Lycos, eventually Yahoo, Google. And these search engine crawlers were slowly indexing web content to show them in search results. This is a very kind of small amount of overall internet traffic. It was kind of happening in the background. People didn't really think too much about it. Robots.txt, they used to be a lot more simple. They were more about kind of like helping bots out or helping them not make mistakes or letting them know how much server load you could handle. So here's an example. For all bots, it's saying don't visit admin pages because it'd be confusing if those showed up in search results. That wouldn't make too much sense. And then, only request or make one request every 10 seconds maximum to not overload the server. And obviously, the servers back then were a lot less scalable than they are today. So you have that. Let's get into bots right now. So the big headline here is that literally half of the internet traffic, like on all websites, is bots. 50% of all internet traffic. And this is a known thing, although I don't think people think about it too much, but you can see these headlines here. Bots make up nearly half of all internet traffic. Bots are taking over. Humans and bots share the web equally. And we see this with Dark Visitors data. This is literally a random website I picked, but this website has 1,000 bots visiting it in the last 30 minutes. You see that 52% is actually bots in this case, which is very close to that 50%. And this is, tens of thousands of bots from visits in this case. So we see this on a per website basis too. So you think your website looks like this, a bunch of humans kind of visiting your pages, but it actually looks like this. There's as many bots as there are humans, which is pretty crazy. And they're doing a bunch of things. I mentioned search engine crawlers. Those are very much still a thing. There's also a bunch of AI cases. I'll get kind of more into those in a bit. But yeah, there's a bunch of different categories of bots beyond just search engine crawlers. And if you want, you can see the full list at this URL here. So again, half your traffic's bots. There's this entire hidden ecosystem. There's literally hundreds of bots that are constantly active, kind of always crawling websites. And again, this 50% number is consistent on a per website basis from Dark Visitors data. It's not just some traffic that's happening to all the other websites. And this is meaningful traffic. It's not just search engine crawlers. They're scraping, crawling, archiving, gathering intelligence on your website. And this is meaningful, especially if you care about things like AI training, which is very relevant to this topic, server resource usage, things like that. These are things that you should probably care about. So I do want to do a deep dive into these three in particular: AI assistants, AI search crawlers, and AI data scrapers, just because it's very topical for the modern age. And just in general, AI bots have really exploded. So the current AI wave of modern LLMs, they've kicked off this kind of explosion of AI related bots that are out in the wild on the internet. And this is on both sides of the coin. On the training side, one of the key unlocks for modern LLMs has been huge amounts of data. So you have a lot of bots kind of going over the internet, picking up data, doing training on it. Also, kind of on the inference side is for already trained models, they're using website content to incorporate into responses that it generates using RAG. And I'll talk about that more here, which is the first type, which is AI assistance. So again, these kind of intelligently perform tasks in response to user prompts. There's always a human user on the other end asking the AI something, but then it will kind of go out, fetch website content, and then incorporate that into the answers that it generates. Popular examples are like ChatGPT, obviously. So I'm sure a lot of people have seen this. They ask it something, it goes out, fetches something, and then shows the user that result, incorporates it. DuckDuckGo has a version of this that you can kind of like chat with your search results. Meta has a version which they use for their products. And these are just three examples, but there's a bunch more. AI search crawlers, these are very similar, but instead of kind of visiting websites just in time, they do it beforehand. So kind of just like normal search crawlers, they kind of index web content to show them in search results. So in this case, the AI will generate a response, and then that will contain basically citations to your website in those results. So again, examples are Perplexity, OpenAI, Applebot. So think like Siri or the new Apple Intelligence. What's powering those things is AI search crawlers. Finally, AI data scrapers. I think this is the kind of like hot topic here, but these are the ones that actually download web content to train AI models. The internet, it's like this perfect source of structured human generated data. It's like perfect for training LLMs. So there's a ton of these. Like if you have a website, you almost certainly have these scraping your website like all the time, like every day at least. Examples are, Claudebot, Google, ByteSpider is like ByteDance's, the TikTok company's owner. There's GPTBot. There's like a huge list of these. These are just kind of three examples. Yeah, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about kind of common behavior patterns that we've observed with dark visitors data. Three of them are kind of like trendy. They follow product trends. In this case, ChatGPT launched their search feature on October 31st. You can see there's a huge uptick in traffic on this particular website starting at that point. Another one is just kind of like constant scraping. ByteSpider is probably one of the more aggressive AI data scrapers on the internet. You can see this one's crawling this website almost 8,000 times a day, and it's literally every day. Amazon bot, also pretty interesting. It kind of does these big monthly spiky swoops. It comes in, scrapes your entire website, and then you don't see it for another month. And then like clockwork, it just comes back and scrapes it again. So this is the kind of main question. So do they actually respect robots.txt? And there's kind of a misconception that AI data scrapers like don't follow robots.txt rules. And that's actually not true. The vast majority of these bigger companies, including OpenAI, Meta, Google, Anthropic, they all follow the rules. And we can confirm this with dark visitors data. However, there's an actual problem with this, and that's if you actually care about scraping, you just don't know which ones to block. There's new ones coming out all the time. There's new companies coming out all the time. It's basically impossible to keep up with all the bots, what they do, like what they're used for, and what the data is doing. And you can see this. So if you look at the top 1,000 websites, robots.txt's, you see a bunch of kind of interesting observations. So one, it's like super inconsistent. So you can imagine if you're a big website and you care about AI data scraping, you'd think you would block all of the AI data scrapers. But this isn't what we see in practice. 25% of those 1,000 websites block GPT bot. However, they don't block the ones from Apple, from Meta, from any of these other companies. It's much less consistent, like all the way down to 10, 5, even like 1% of websites actually blocking all of them. It's also really slow adoption. So Applebot Extended was something that was launched right after WWDC in the beginning of June. And in the 3 months after that, only about 5 to 6% of top websites were actually blocking it. And again, compare that to the same set of websites that are blocking GPTBot, which is OpenAI's one, by 25%. And I mean, the main reason here, like I mentioned, is that just new bots are constantly added. So in this case, I mentioned Applebot. It was added on June 15th. 1 month later, Meta introduced two more. One of them was an AI data scraper. And then literally like a week later, OpenAI launched OAI SearchBot, which is their AI search crawler. So it's very, very hard to keep up. So yeah, I mean, how can dark visitors help? So the first feature Dark Visitors has is basically aimed exactly at this problem. So it's called automatic robots.txt. And what it does is it keeps your robots.txt updated with the latest known AI agents automatically. So all you do is like kind of set the category of things you want to block. And then using the list on Dark Visitors, it will block all the agents in that category. And that list is continuously updated. It's literally updated every day. So this is more kind of effective than maintaining one manually, where you would have to kind of keep up with the news, like keep up with these things and manually edit that text file. So instead, you can just use this to generate your text file for you. If you're using WordPress, there's also a plugin that will actually block agents who try to break the rules. And if you want to verify whether this is all working, you can set up agent analytics, which I'll talk about right now. So yeah, agent analytics. So this is the main feature of Dark Visitors. And what this does is it gives you real-time insight into the activity of all the bots visiting your website. So this gives you full transparency to how your data is being accessed, which bots are doing it, all that. So here's the dashboard. You can see the real-time overview. You can see, again, like the ratio of bots versus humans, top agents. You can see a breakdown of the different categories and the activity across the bots in those categories. Real time is really important. Like I said, these things are constantly crawling your website. This is a real example. These are all within the past couple seconds in this case. A bunch of different scrapers. You can see them basically visiting your website in real time. If you zoom in, you've noticed that there's some check marks. Dark Visitors actually lets you see if something was spoofed or not. So you can imagine people would spoof Googlebot, and then that would look like a real visit. Dark Visitors lets you know if this was actually spoofed or whether it was legit. And if it was verified, it will show you like this green check mark. Yeah, I mean, you'll get insights into individual crawlers. This is Byte Spider. In this case, traffic started ramping up around November 1st. So it annotated the graph, sent the Dark Visitors user a notification. So they knew that this was kind of happening behind the scenes. Again, like top agents, it will show you which of the things that are visiting your website the most. As the kind of top pages, like which are the pages that they're most interested in. Yeah, finally, it's also just a catalog of a bunch of different agents. So there's a big agents list that gives you info on like the official documentation of all the bots. It tells you a bit about expected behavior. It can also surface insights into other websites. So for example, like how many of those top websites are blocking this particular bot, and then you make decisions based on that. Yeah, there's notifications. You get that for spikes, for rule breakers. You'll get daily summaries. You can also export all of this to CSV if you want to do some kind of custom analysis or share it with your clients. And yeah, you can connect your website in seconds. It's super easy if you have a WordPress, especially. Otherwise, you can use the API. So if you want full transparency into everything that's happening on your website, this is kind of a strategy you would follow. So for the 50% of your traffic that's humans, you would continue to use what you're using, like Google Analytics, kind of like these traditional platforms. And then for the other 50%, you would use something like Dark Visitors, and that will show you all the bot traffic. And then together, you have this kind of like holistic view into everything about your website, how your data is being accessed. All right, so let's talk about the future. The main thing here is that bots are going to continue to get more intelligent. So I think a lot of people have heard the term AI agents or autonomous agents. This is something that's going to happen. Anthropic, Google, ChatGPT, or OpenAI, they're all working on ways to have AIs actually use computers, actually use browsers, and basically complete these multiple step tasks. And these tasks will involve not just browsing, but also taking action on websites as if they were a human. So here's an example. You can imagine like in a couple of months, you'll be able to say, hey, AI, here's my credit card number. Go out and like find me the cheapest flight you can find to New York. And it would go out, it would do all the browsing, it would check all the kind of like travel websites, and then buy you a ticket and then report back with your ticket. So that's a pretty complex thing. It's navigating multiple websites, you're filling out forms, it's sorting, it's scrolling, it's actually making purchases. So this is actually like very impactful for those businesses. And right now, this would be basically completely invisible to traditional analytics platforms. So again, like if you ran one of those websites, you would have no idea where this purchase came from. It would just kind of show up. And this is happening. Amazon, they're making things that want to do shopping for you. Google, they're making AI agents that are doing things like making returns for you. This is like very, very meaningful activity, and this trend is expected to kind of continue. So all in all, dark visitors can kind of help you navigate this transition, right? So insights will include, these new intelligent bots and these kind of new human-like actions that they'll be taking. And obviously, visibility is a kind of a basic requirement if you want to make good decisions about your website, about your business. And this is already starting; it's kicking off, and that 50% is only going to increase. So yeah, please check it out. I promise you'll be immediately surprised at how much bot kind of traffic there is on your website and kind of what's going on under the surface. So yeah, like I said, it takes a few seconds to connect your website. I'd love your feedback. I think it could really help you. And yeah, I left my email. So please reach out to me if you have questions or if you need help getting set up. And the URL is darkvisitors.com. Yeah, with that, I'll pass it back off. So thank you.
Thanks so much. That's really, really, really great to hear and have the overview. I'm gonna ask a few questions still with the recording going, and then we are gonna open it. We'll stop the recording in the live stream, and then other people can feel free to ask questions coming off mute. Okay, and I also see that some people have asked questions in the chat. But one thing that I was wondering while you were talking, we just saw like a lot of graphs and a lot of like absorbed a lot of information. And a lot of what the Data Futures Lab has been looking at is kind of like the human impacts of this phenomenon of like data like that people have lost agency, and a lot of it has to do with their creative content, whether they're journalists or content creators on YouTube with video. So I actually wanted to ask you your origin story. Like, what made you start this? Do you have a similar kind of injustice moment, or was it really just curiosity?
Yeah, good question. I mean, mostly curiosity. Like, dark visitors in general is neutral on AI data scraping. We don't take one thing, we don't say it's bad, we don't say it's good. We're just neutral on it. That being said, kind of the mission is just to give people the option to do what they think is best for themselves. So if they are a creator, they might not also be some like web expert. They're not keeping track of all these different companies, all these different bots. So this just makes it easy to make the decision that they were going to make anyway. So, for example, like the WordPress plugin, it's really easy. You just check the box and it's like, okay, now you're blocking everything. So yeah, no origin story myself, but this is really more about just like providing people the tools to make the decisions that are best for them and best for kind of like their data.
Thanks. And actually, that leads me to my next question. Uh, as you know, a few weeks ago, we talked with James Smith of Human Native AI, and they actually mentioned dark visitors on their website as a kind of complementary tool. For those of you that weren't there, it's essentially a marketplace that will enable people to opt in to having their data used to train AI systems on their terms, and so that they can theoretically like get money for doing so. And so they have dark visitors listed as enabling as those same people, if they use dark visitors, enabling them to restrict unauthorized access to their content and presumably get all the analytics info that you've just shown. So have you worked with them or similar organizations? Is this something that you also like see as an important kind of complementarity?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we've exchanged a couple of emails, but I think they're kind of like a complementary thing, like depending on, how you want to make your data available. Either you can go completely block it, you can use something like dark visitors, automatic robots.txt, or like you can get paid for it. And that makes sense. I think the analogy I've been using is kind of like street photography. Like in the US, street photography is legal. Like someone with a camera can go and like take a picture. You could be in that picture. that's not illegal, right? You can go up to that person and be like, hey, like, please don't take my picture. And that's kind of what robots.txt is. And, most people be like, all right, like, no worries. And then I think this takes it a step farther where you're actually now kind of signing up to be like a model, right? So like they're like the modeling agency, you'll get paid for people to like take pictures of you, right? So that's kind of like what these marketplaces are. So if you do want to monetize your content, that's a great option. So it's kind of like two different use cases depending on, again, like what you want to do with your data, and how it's being used and like how you think about that.
Sounds good. And then I see that we have a few questions in the chat. I'll ask this one of from M. You've covered how robots text can help discourage bots. On the flip side, is there a way to encourage bots to crawl your site or specific pages? Also in the context of art education.
Yeah. I mean, I think like human native, like that's a good example of, they're making a marketplace of available content to crawl or like of available data sets. Um, I think a lot of kind of like encouraging bots is also just like following normal SEO practices. Like if you have a good website, if you have interesting content, if you're making, if your creative works are something that they find interesting, like you'll kind of naturally attract them. But it is very closely tied to just like following good SEO practices.
Got it. Yeah, I was gonna say I have another question about that balance. And I know that there's someone on the call that might have some insights to share. So why don't we at this point we'll stop the recording. Thank you all who have tuned in on the live stream, and we're gonna go into Q&A now.
Recording stopped.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you. So now if people want to turn on their cameras and pose questions themselves, this is a